Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode. Why is existence experiencing itself? And what could the activations of an unknown collective life be? You know, I often think or wonder about what the significance of reality is. There is a quote from this poet from 700 years ago named Rumi. He says, "When I was younger, I wanted to change the world. But now that I am older, I change myself." Being born on this planet is being born in a world. But something that the human being doesn't know, what the child doesn't know, is that the world it finds itself in is not the only world that is here. Imagine a young child playing with a toy. Then suddenly the parents take the toy away. That child, by experiencing a different reality, experiences a completely different emotion of expression. Something that's not taught, it's experientially just cultivated throughout the lifetime. Is that our world is not the only world. And when this comes to the idea of a species, what the human species is existentially 8 billion creatures on a celestial object, on a rock in the middle of nowhere. This is the biggest news flash. So, when we realize we're creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, that's a sort of existential answer. That's as if like we got a sense, we had a question about the first world we were in, and we got an answer, we got an existential answer. If someone says, what is existence? It is creatures facing their destiny, creatures facing their future. So there is an existential evaluation of reality, where like what's existing here, biological creatures, a bunch of them. These biological creatures have had an ability to communicate and recognize each other. If I was to put a equal sign beside existence, Existence is like matter has noticed it's being matter. Let's say we look at the human being, the human situation, as a mystery, and we're trying to unravel this mystery. Let's say we divide reality. What is the human being, of course, is the experience of a world. To be human is to be a self in a world. So, if we look at it existentially, stuff in space, moving stuff in space. And some people have this view that space doesn't move, but recently physicists are saying that what moves faster than light is space. Our existence is pretty much how should an object move in space. Or I shouldn't say how, pretty much an object in space. I think that's a fair thing to say. Existence equals known object present in unknown space. Now, if we're looking at the human just what the human being is, or what the experience of being a human being is as a mystery, and we're like, okay, it has an existential side. We look at the existential side, we find, a known object present in an unknown space. That known object is being considered an evolutionary animal. And what an animal is how one part of the environment or let me say it differently. What an animal is how a part of the world moves in the world. When we wonder about animal psychology, our animal psychology is pretty much the mind of the creature couldn't escape the environment. So what that means is where the creature was born, its imagination was being its environment, its relationship with its environment. The environment controls, I'll give you an example. When I look at let's say when I look at fish, let's say you see fish in an aquarium, the environment is suggesting the ability and the possibilities of moving the fish. What I'm trying to say is an animal, a natural animal is dependent on its environment, and an unnatural animal starts behaving independent of its environment. What we have seen happen for the human experience is pretty much a part of nature awakening to itself unnaturally. Now, an argument can be made consciousness is an unnatural intervention. or consciousness happen too soon, you know. It's kind of bizarre. Existentially, it's like a collective system, right? When a person tries to measure their own existence with like the existence, like if I wonder about, okay, do I exist? Does that chair in front of me exist? Does the sky exist? Does the planet exist? When it comes to the notion, the idea of existence, everything is equal in the eyes of existence. That means everything's equally existing. A person cannot go to another person and say philosophically, I exist more than you, you know. Existence is the experience of nature. If we're a natural entity and we're wondering about our natural purpose, by just existing, we are serving our natural purpose. And what is existence? It is shape. It is shape moving in space. This is a simple way to say it. Now, in the mystery of what the human being is, we're like, okay, there's an existential level of perception, and then we're like, okay, there's also an experiential level. So in the experiential level, we're not just shapes moving in space. We are the space where the shapes move. I have wondered about the nature of my own mind, and think of it this way. Imagine you were a human being and you were born on Earth, and you were born in a dark room. Imagine somebody, there were these shamanic tribes. Evidently these Amazonian tribes where the child was born in a dark cave, and they would not allow the child to step out of the cave and experience light for 18 years. So imagine being born on Earth, a gallery filled with visual content, but you are living in darkness. So imagine somebody born in a dark room and they don't know, they can't see what they are, but they are experiencing what they are. That's kind of like the human situation. We are experiencing life, but we don't know what it is. And a reason for us not knowing what it is because the methods of knowledge we use are limited. So if we were in a dark room, we had never seen our body, we had never seen anything, but we were existing, you know, it would be as if in the same way as, like, let's say a human being who's never seen themselves outside of a dark room. It's another way of saying we as human beings have not seen ourselves outside of a shape in space. This is really the simplicity of it, you know. When I was younger, I thought knowledge was something that, you know, a person deserved. You know, I thought it was something that you had to be worthy, you had to have a sort of status, and then you'd get access to the knowledge. You know, little did I know those who attempt to reverse engineer or to go beyond the story of their life, they eventually will come to a point where they have to question, what do they know? You see, this is important for every being. You know, most people realize, let's say, what they don't know. Okay, like, I don't know how to fly right now, you know. But what if I knew how to fly, you know? What if right now the human species already knows how to solve all the problems in the universal sector? What if we know before shape in space becomes our room. I wondered, okay, what is this? What is this attention that's existing? What is existence? And strangely, existence, it's kind of like our minds are how space is noticing matter in it, matter or shape. And our body is how matter is noticing space. We notice space and we move in this space as a body. So what is strange is that existentially everybody is living one life. Okay? One physical life. So far it's considered this way. Experientially, we are living in the simultaneity of the mind, an unknown mind moving a known body, and the known body, in some sense, limiting or defining the unknown mind. So I'm saying existentially, shape in space is just satisfying that condition. Experientially, how the shape moves in space is becoming our life. You know, it's kind of like energy. This might sound bizarre. I think I might be the first person to say this, but it's like energy has a body, energy has a mind, and energy has unknown variables beyond the limits of its definition. The mystery of why is existence experiencing itself is the same mystery of why are we experiencing our existence. The answer seems to be an activity. The more reality is based on shape, the more the meaning of life is how these shapes change. The more reality is based on space, it's as if the meaning of life is more in not what you do, but in how you are being. Its dimensions. The species has ignored that it's in a multidimensional position, and what is experiencing existence is observing existence, and what is existing is based on that observance. Simply put, the world moves our self. We call that existence. The self moves the world. We call that experience. It's so bizarre to be a biological entity because we start with a first person point of view. Like we are biologically designed to not see our own face. Do you see? It's like our hands are designed to be observed by our eyes, but our eyes are not designed to be observed by our eyes. The eyes are such a unique design in the world, where it's as if when people have said the eyes are the windows of the soul, it's as if our eyes and how our attention is sort of one-sided is the mystery of what is looking through reality. For me, I am constantly Going towards this state of mind where I feel the whole species, it's going to realize that the human idea was an excuse based on fear. You see, if I define myself as a human being, the limitations of the human experience are become universal factors. But what I have realized is that the mind that generates the idea of the human is present before the idea of human is even established. It's like I'm saying that we are mysteriously alive as an unknown observer before, through free will, the intention of shape arises through attention. There was this, I had this thought in some of the lectures. I've kind of directed the episodes towards this idea that we are so conditioned to think that we are temporary beings that we never wonder about how would immortal beings live the same life we are. Sometimes I think about this, right? Like throughout the day, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get tired at the end of the day, and it's like a constant, like it's like being a human being is like being a dolphin, jumping in and out of the water, but it's like a rhythm between states of consciousness and the unconscious. I sometimes think about how when I, let's say, judge myself, or when I have an opinion on myself, it's an opinion conditioned, filtered by the idea of a mortal being. But imagine whoever you are listening to me now, whoever you are listening, for a moment consider what the value of everything you see, your philosophies, your ideologies, would be if you were an immortal being. What would the meaning and value of life be if human beings never died? Imagine all the scholars, all the great minds in history, they were alive right now. Imagine nobody on this planet had ever died. But everything else was, like, let's say other animals died, plants and flowers changed, but the human attention, the human consciousness, imagine if it was immortal. I'm pretty much telling the viewers as an exercise, imagine what immortal eyes would see. And what immortal, this is my, so far how far I have envisioned it, that if I was immortal, the limitations that justify my value system would cease to exist. That means it's like the person has a fear. They're like, okay, I'm living 100 years of life, and then what's gonna happen after? Where am I gonna go? Or what's gonna happen to the nature of my conscious attention? But if there was immortality, there would be no fear of death. There would be no fear of anything. It's as if we become eyes that could not be affected by reality. Immortality would be a sort of emotionless observance. And this might sound bizarre, but I feel, I shouldn't say I feel, but I'm kind of poetically or playfully theorizing that what really our minds are how previous civilizations reached a state of advancement and they reach states of collective being. So it's as if this will be a conscious chapter in history in the future, the era of collective mindhood. But for now, temporary version of myself has to strategize in, let's say, a world that will go on beyond me. And people celebrate birthdays, right? And what is a birthday? A person is honoring their own existence. It's honoring the value of one's attention in the realm. Now imagine we wanted to celebrate the birthday of an infinite world. That means it's as if would immortal beings celebrate birthdays? Who knows? What I think is that the human being needs to have weaknesses. Right? Sometimes we think that, power and strength means someone who's so perfect that their weaknesses don't even exist. But our weaknesses keep us human. Our fears keep us humble. The intensities of life, it's really like to be born as a human being is to be like this creature. It's like this antenna has appeared, and every moment in its conscious waking life, waves of information are colliding with its reality. Just like somebody turns on their Wi-Fi on their phone, and when you're driving, let's say, not when you're driving, but let's say you're in the passenger seat, you've turned on your phone and you're looking at the Wi-Fi, and every building your car is passing, let's say at a slow speed, you get to see the Wi-Fi routers in the area. To be a human being is something similar, but instead of our intelligence finding Wi-Fi routers, it's kind of like our intelligence finds other ways it can happen. Potential realities of access. An immortal being will be a being that can never get surprised anymore. The surprise element of reality goes away. We human beings think that to have more knowledge is like the ultimate meaning of life, but when we reach the conclusion that our knowledge was a self-simulation, what human knowledge for human consciousness is how our ancestors started a fire, and every explorer is, by finding new dimensions, bringing new dimensions into the consciousness of the human species. It's as if we have been throwing firewood. Every human life, if communication is utilized. What knowledge is where the edge of a dynamic system is. When I was younger, I had a fascination and interest in mechanical engineering. And the reason was because to me, anything happening seems like intelligence, but what causes an event to occur is the source of the intelligence. You see, whether you are a spiritual person, a religious person, let's say a secular person, every person is engaged in the game of exploring their world. How we go about exploring it suggests not only our karma, but how far the world has extended. Oh man, this was on mute. Sorry, guys. I was simply saying that let's use the metaphor of a Discord server. In a Discord server, there's members, there's moderators, and there's an administrator. What a Discord server is it's like a voice chat kind of group. So, imagine reality is a space, a server. It has moderators, it has administrators, and let's say we are being its members. And let's say who the prophets were in history. Imagine, I'm going to draw parallels here to theology, but let's say the administrator, or let me say it this way, God sending the archangel Gabriel to speak to a prophet. Is equivalent to an administrator sending a moderator to speak to a member. And the administrator's message is that, okay, the members have found themselves in a space. We are like beings, like the members of existence. We have found ourselves in an existential space. Not that space is existing, but that on some level, the absence of existence is where new existence tends to happen. The mystery of reality is kind of like the members over time becoming the moderators, and eventually everybody is the administrator. So it's kind of like this option, and I think this is the metaphoric, mythological value of the concept of the pantheon of the gods, right? In certain polytheistic traditions, gods were functioning in tribes, in groups. We find in ancient Vedic mythology the war between immortal and eternal beings. You know, it's the Vedas and the Asuras. The immortally conscious and the eternal unconscious. So there was a war between, let's say, these beings from the sky and these beings from the earth, the Asuras and the Devas. And in Greek mythology, we have the war of, in some sense, the gods and the titans. This blew my mind, where two different mythological systems, having similar geometrical structure in their ideology. It's as if before this world, this era, this moment in history that I'm giving this talk, it's as if in ancient times a transcendental battle had happened on this earth. You know, pretty much think of it this way: there was a war between dimensions. Right now, the gates, poetically, let's say, are closed, you know. This also falls close into Eastern mythologies, right? Eastern mythologies where reality, it's like, it's not just the human being that had a spirit. All nouns and verbs had a spirit. Do you know? in Tibetan Buddhism, there was a guy named Guru Padmasambhava, and this guy was such a next level enlightened being that he would go to different villages and towns all alone. He would go, and in towns that had a drought or they had some sort of misfortune, he would go there and he would convert the demon. Like, let's say the farmer, there was a drought, it was as if there was a demon there, and Guru Padmasambhava, this next level Buddhist, would go and convert these demons to Buddhism. Like, this dude was converting demons to Buddhism, okay? Like, Guru Padmasambhava is like, you know, it's the closest thing to what a universal being would do. You see, there's forces pulling everybody. Right now, even me giving this talk, all my desires, all my inefficiencies, everything about my life, these are like beings, but they are not beings of shape. They're not like noun-based beings. They are verb-based beings. So in some sense, it's like the flow of something. So Guru Padmasambhava would go and he would recommend the reality of those violent, inefficient entities, and in some sense bring them into the light of efficiency. Right? For me, it's as if I'm that person in history, kind of looking at all chaotic and ordered beings on this planet and being like, the concept of advancement is beyond the wars of chaos and order. We are not just dualistic beings. There's many moments in life where reality continues even though consciousness does not. Right? Like, for me, this is the bizarre thing, right? I understand that there's the idea of death, that every human being is temporary, mortal, and will die someday. But to me, when I ask myself what dies, it's like every night when I go to sleep, it's like that mind that was existing stops being there. So deep sleep is kind of like where existence is being eternal without a picture. You know, without time. To be alive, or to be a human being, is to have access to the most advanced workstation in the universal sector. In other words, we can do something here as creatures on Earth that no creature anywhere in the cosmos can do. Humanity is destined for advancement because that's the law of nature. Why have civilizations been rising and falling? Like, civilizations rising and falling to me feel like Gaia, a planetary being, is constantly trying to reinvent something it couldn't perfect. You know, the constant effort. It's as if, like, ideologically wondering why evolution cared to evolve, right? Because what is going on a deep psychological level is just a relationship of a present moment being divided based on a past into a future. So it's kind of like we're tunneling through we're journeying through one physical world, but we are tunneling through as many self-simulations our mind projects. Now, if a person realizes they are not their body and mind, and for some people they might be like, what do you mean, Mr.Within? If we're not our mind, then who's here? Exactly. You see, I have just seen too much repetition. You know, I would say this is one of the burdens of my psychology. That in the acknowledgement of greater dimensions, one instantaneously cultivates eternal patience, and poetically end the spirit of endless endurance. So imagine Superman who never gets tired, or that guy called Flash from like that comic, right? It's as if these beings could move so fast that they could, like Superman, if Superman flew faster than the speed of light, he would become an invisible being. That means technically Superman can move so fast that he could be invisible to his opponents if he wanted to. Like the cape and the like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like the edge of ability leads to an inconceivability. If you look at the photo, you see a value system through an individual position trying to revalue the collective. You know what's funny? We are going to become our mind in the future. Right now we're living in the experience of an unknown universal mind. Imagine like a hipster getting a revelation and being like, am I being inside God's imagination, bro? Like the mystery of the realm. You know, it's a relationship that we have ignored because fear is considering that its intelligence is just shaped. You know, it's like the person's like, wait a minute, I can totally fathom like my body, you know, let's say the concept of death being applied to the body, but I cannot fathom the concept of death being applied to the mind. The mind is like the potential of movement, and free will is like this, pressing the switch. You know, what I'm trying to say is that the eyes that are watching the moment before an idea of self moves the moment, it's as if you are the unknown presence to any content in your consciousness. We are the inconceivable source. It's kind of like existence. The mind, by receiving existence for the first time ever, is like creating existence. We either choose to hope that we can use language to convey at least the significance of the mind. question of imagination. Like what imagination is like all the ways the intelligence of the moment is present. Anybody who wonders about what they are, they will suddenly notice that instantaneously, before having a thought, existence is existing. Do you know? And it's kind of like, nature is living a life and something beyond nature. We think anything beyond nature is unnatural, right? That's kind of like Civilization 1.0's mentality. But there is something where, let's say we have the term unnatural and we have the term hypernatural or beyond natural. So imagine there is nature and then there's something beyond nature, and there's also something. So unnatural is when we deviate from the physical nature. Something that is beyond nature is beyond the unnatural and the natural. Let's say, what am I saying? Let's call it supernatural. You know? Beyond natural, sure. We could call it supernatural. Really, human intelligence, the intellect is fascinated with skill. The purpose of, let's say, the intellect, that means the idea of you search for meaning, is skill. Everybody deep down wants ability. This is the ultimate desire in the void. That means in the middle of nowhere, we want to be able. Right? But when we ask ourselves, able for what? Like, are we just meant to just chill out and live a peaceful life on Earth, or are we meant to use all the geometry of the realm to build an advanced civilization? Like, I can't be the only person who's fascinated by the most advanced activity that our species could do. Like, literally, we're at the chessboard of the known and the unknown. Imagine a known universe master and an unknown universe master. And the game, instead of chess, is universe. Okay, so the chess masters are universe masters, right? So I'm saying it's kind of like, imagine a world where there was a god of knowledge and there was a god of the unknown. The god of the unknown is how something prior to structure is being to instantaneously move. The known is how we added dimensions to create a miniature version of the earth and language to then assume we're living in that. Do you know? If one is to wonder what is the purpose of existence, the purpose of existence was to find the free will. And the purpose of the free will is to wonder why it's here. And it's kind of like the infinite potential of our inner realms is activating like engines of a futuristic spacecraft, about to go, let's say, at hyper speed, Hyperspeed is another way of saying what do we call that before it's teleported, Like imagine there was a running race, but the runners could have teleportation devices. And imagine the runner that won was the person who just teleported a second before the finish line, In the future, guys, if teleportation technology somehow becomes a possibility, the Olympics is going to change. In the future, they're going to wonder about like the evolution, like sports, all the sports in human civilization. In the future, they're going to have a sort of cyber counterpart. So what that means is, imagine you're seeing your favorite soccer players, your favorite soccer teams, let's say, facing off in like, the World Cup or something, but the players all have like, like next level technological shoes and like, do you know what I'm saying? Like it's like we add the infinite possibilities of technology to an image, a natural archetype. Because if I think of myself as an image, then everything I see is natural, right? That means if I see a robot and I see a tree, the sight is natural. Do you know? But the content of the sight, if zoomed in, then one can find endless unnatural realities. It's really that we are unknown pilots in a known world, which ultimately at its edge is unknown. Advanced communicators are human beings that have acknowledged, have experienced 4 modalities of reality, 4 modes. If anybody has experienced these 4 states of mind, you can literally pilot very capably in your inner realms. That means your free will is strangely blessed, So these 4 states for the advanced communicators of the future generations, and for all the pilots of consciousness that will appear, that will arrive, It's like parents think they're, how would I say it? Like, it's like we are bringing souls. We are being the soul of a temporary world. An unknown soul in a temporary world. That's it. 4 states of mind, if acknowledged, lead to advancement's truth. The truth behind the idea of advancement. And the first state is to acknowledge the void. We acknowledge that there could be a view of life where it's empty, So it's literally becoming content with the void. So whoever you are, doesn't matter what age, this goes for all conscious beings, you know, that you must acknowledge and discover the nature of the void, that which doesn't need a concept to, that which doesn't need shape to be. Really, death is just the question, where will the geometry of the mind go? And how will the conscious return, you know, let's say to the kingdoms of the unconscious, to the greater ways that the world was always. One cultivates, let's say, awareness of the void. Then you cultivate a state called the singular. So pretty much the mind tries to be everything and wonder about what is the destiny of everything being everything. How could mindness, how could oneness have a personality? A void state unlocked, you know, let's say the person achieves awareness of the void. Then the person achieves awareness of the singular, which is the awareness of everything, any individual archetype. That means your mind suddenly unlocks ways of seeing things where you can, you know, how there's the idea of empathy, looking through someone else's eyes. It's like when a person cultivates awareness of the singular, what tends to happen is they begin having an ability to see everything having meaning at once. So the person can suddenly see themselves as a singular entity. They could see the whole universe as a singular entity, do you know? And so a truth becomes a sort of singularity, you know? It's like, is truth inconceivable or is truth one? You know? Or is oneness inconceivable? So I'm trying to tell viewers, your mind, instead of being like a person, can experience a moment where it's being just the whole moment. That's cultivation of, let's say, the singularity of mind. Now, after you have cultivated that, there's another dimension to reality, which is, let's say, the duality. And pretty much I've created this system where these four symbols are the four quadrants or sectors of reality for human consciousness. 0, 1, 2 infinity symbol. So we cultivated the void, 0, we cultivated the singularity, the number 1, and then we come to the number 2. And this is where language, reality, purpose, and hope live. Okay, so it's a state of mind where the person realizes, okay, I am a self in a world, and there is the known and there is the unknown. So this is cultivating duality, and everybody has attained mastery. That's the kind of like the hidden advantage of living in an ignorant civilization. Let's say we experienced an inefficient phase of human civilization, but that had a hidden advantage. We understood the value of what else could happen. We discovered the value of the future beyond the dimensions that the past were convinced of. Duality is about realizing pretty much the light of the sun, or the planet spinning around itself and getting a tan, like the light of the sun hitting the planet. It caused the psychology of the animal, this creature that we are, to be dualistic. You know, just like deep down at the core instincts of our psychology, it's like it's pretty much pain and pleasure that's justifying the behavior of an animal. It's trying to move away from pain and just move towards pleasure, right? But it's like wondering about the strategies for humanity, you know? And so I'm like, okay, it's this system, human beings are in it. What are they experiencing? They're experiencing moments where there's nothing, moments where there's everything, you know, moments where there's two things, right? And then they have also visions, abstract visions of what the infinite or the eternal or the transcendent could be, you know? It's kind of hilarious. It's like somebody wondering about transcendence, like transcends, you know? Because the mere nature of the idea is, where is the permission for the world changing for you coming from? And it's coming from within. When you realize that, you become poetically like an eternal, the eternal observance of, let's say, you become a genius eternal observer, which I mean, it's like when you access an unconditional way that your own intelligence is being before you do anything, then you are in some sense free to move in that dimension of mind. So what I'm trying to tell people is that it's the way you're looking at life that is suggesting its value. That means how we value the world is pretty much the story of how our values came to be our values. That's psychology. You know? Psychology, simply put, is the exploration of how value systems have led to action through genetical medium. You know? You know, there's going to be in the future schools of advanced communication everywhere. right? And these schools of advanced communication, the idea behind it is that, like, imagine like in fantasy shows, there's this concept of like the wizard, and then there's the concept of like this wizardry school or something, you know. Now human beings don't have that kind of magic, but we have technology that is the closest thing to an advanced tool, right? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the human being doesn't have magic, but it has access to technology that can alter the moment still, right? Like, what is desire? It's the mirage of perfection, you know. Beyond the dualistic dimension, it's just infinity. It's the mind being able to allow an abstract simulation of the future to affect its behavior of what the future can be. Our minds are living ahead of our bodies, you know. That's the way it's happened. And the schools of advanced communication would be sort of safe havens for all the states of human mind that have been experienced and can be positioned in a database. Imagine we wanted to create a dictionary of all the human states of mind there could be. Do you know? All states of consciousness. Consciousness being this unknown viewing force, but the framework of reality is kind of like how consciousness creates memories for itself. Something in this world turned a singular experience into a dualistically known and unknown experience. A singular existence became a dualistic experiencer. Now the dualistic experience has the option of going towards the singular, going towards the void, or going towards the infinite. I would say I'm a firm believer that if someone looks at something for a long time, they will see new dimensions to it. So if we concentrate on the idea of ourself, which pretty much is what meditation is, Like meditation can be said to be like you're trying to figure out what sort of intelligence as a being you are. It's kind of strange. It's like what is looking through our eyes can be based on a known past or an unknown present. But ultimately, attention to shape is what consciousness is the game consciousness is playing. Sometimes I get this feeling, what if the world is like this, random puzzle to solve that solves all the puzzles? That means if we could understand what is looking through our eyes, we would be capable to discover like how is an ideological system connecting to a physical being. It's as if, like, imagine in an invisible room, we're saying like we're like a, how would I say, imagine your imagination is an invisible room, and or better yet, it's like if reality is the original film, imagination is like the interpretation of the original film. Imagination is kind of like what the brain sees so far. Is the past looking through the eyes of the present? Is the present just being the present? Or could the future be positioning the past for the present to act in accordance to? Pretty much the future generations, I think they're just going to get fed up and to really take to the idea of truth seriously. The species comes to this conclusion, all right, let's figure out what truth is, and then everybody can live in a world that's truth, And what truth is the potential of the behavior of an evolutionary animal in the void. So when I think about the macrocosm, I access the void dimension. When I think about my existence, I access the singular dimension. When I think about, in some sense, chaos and order, change, the afterlife, what was here before this life, what is even here now in this life, Like, human beings are so hilarious in the sense that we don't know who we are when we wonder about who we are. Do you understand what I'm saying? We are playfully unknown beings. So what is looking out through every person's eyes is their potential for the most advanced state of mind, which will suggest the most advanced self. And in my search for what is the most advanced state of mind that can be, like what's the most ultimate position of human intelligence, and you know what I discovered? The ultimate position of human intelligence is to remember it is not from this world. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the purpose of knowledge is to make the one pursuing the knowledge realize that the unknown nature of reality is how the whole moment is being known. It's in some sense something like a two-dimensional square doesn't know a three-dimensional cube is being, And so the space is where dimensions can exist, but inside an object, in accordance to shape and geometry, dimensions exist. We have, from the beginning of our lives, been geometrical entities. It's like the brain is solar powered to access geometry, and that's what information is. Information is the shape of the content of one's experience, The geometrical code. Imagine every moment had a sort of geometrical code, as if the brain is this solar powered technology. Our brains use sunlight to observe information, and the free will is what the brain does after it has received the information. Free will is the afterlife of the brain. Do you know that means the afterlife of an object was to become a sovereign subject? We are living as if, matter was our past life, and the mind has access to unknown space. Legends are born in the unknown. People don't realize this. Greatness is not in knowledge. So anybody can know anything, sure, but it's like, what's the purpose of the knowledge? And all knowledge, and pretty much what all philosophy is a search for the original axis of reality. Every person is wondering, okay, I'm somewhere, something's happening as a world event. I'm an event of nature that has become conscious of itself. So upon what central value does the universe move? Do you know? It's kind of like trying to read the universe's mind. Do you know? That's a portal to poetry, I'm telling you. Universalism is when a person experiences a compassion that is beyond human. Imagine, just like Mother Teresa had compassion, imagine human beings in the future will have compassion for extraterrestrial beings. Like that. That means the human being was so advanced that it found itself able to be free to trust reality. Right? And our motivation and inspiration is in the consideration of what sort of value is our soul sculpting for our mind. The mystery of reality is like, how are our eyes being open, being our body, mind, and soul at the same time? They ask the spiritual guy, why are you so happy? And the person's like, because that's the only place that we can be. Imagine a victory for the mind, like if the species, like a genius chess move strategy, right, was like, okay, why don't we give purpose to all human life and all nearby human life, that the effort of the human species is to discover its own advancement. And advancement means, what is the most advanced physical state of being? What is the most advanced, let's say, inner realms, your mind, a state of being for your mind? It's like the most advanced state of mind, the most advanced state of body, and the most advanced state of the soul is how the unknown is instantaneously being the space where all knowledge is moving. So really, to be a human being is to have a privilege to discover an unknown self, and the unknown self in a dualistic system, and in the linguistic simulation, in some sense, when we are characters in stories and we consider that image as the original truth, if we think duality was in the room first, we will never see anything beyond duality. You see, it's not just like a human being back in the day worshipped, like, let's say, trees or something, and then human beings, after worshipping idols, they went and started worshipping ideas. But it's like, imagine a human being worshipping the shape of a dimension, a shape of the world. Like, if I ask right now, let's say we bring the experts on any topic and we say, okay, experts, what is the shape of the world? And if the answer isn't unknown, then we are not looking at the magnitude of the problem. Do you see, there's something going on here so mysterious that there are self-governing conscious agencies through genetics, like it's like a biological program was released into a psychological program, and the psychological program has an ability to see beyond its nature, so unnatural realities or beyond nature, supernatural or whatever kind of realities are possible, right? Because it's the mind's life, the body's life. Okay, I'm just being this existence. The mind's life, what am I experiencing my existence for, right? So the mind wonders about its edge, and that's where infinity is. How when it's kind of like duality multiplied by duality leads to infinity. Do you know? The question, why is existence experiencing itself, is like saying, why is an unknown moving known intelligence wondering why the unknown is there? You see, when we reach the unknown, it's like a checkpoint in the video game of life. It's that moment where we realize underneath every moment of certainty and belief and confidence in anything, there's an unknown space. That means where was truth before we noticed it, you know? In the subtitle, I've written activations of the unknown collective life. The activations of the unknown collective life means like you're kind of using the geometry of thought of being like, okay, there's consciousness can have, let's say, an individual expression, it can have a collective expression, right? So we can consider an individual human being, we can consider the whole species, the collective position, right? So I'm saying, if the individual can discover that there's unknown variables to how it is happening, it's as if poetically there's unknown ways that collective systems of knowledge, it's as if the most advanced beings are actually beings that have realized the unknown, and they cultivate benevolent witnessing, pretty much. Like, it's as if the person's like, what's the soul gonna do, like, after this life? And it's as if that's when the idea of the soul is tested by its own shape. It's like the character in the video game has an inner life and an outer life. And in our outer life, there's individual collective dimensions. In our inner life, there's individual collective dimensions. But it's just that, like, I think the whole purpose of this Mr. Within channel is, like, for me to say, like, the advanced collective, the legend of advanced civilizations, it's like that idea has archaically revived. A fearless intellectual approach to the ultimate destination of the potential of the human species. Every person has to feel so advanced that they begin wondering, how can their species become victorious? In other words, it's like, how do we use the energetic essence of our vision to manifest? And what is manifestation? It's how the inner realms step into the outer realms. That means every act of the free will is how energy from an unknown state is becoming energy known in a known state, right? So when you actually try to cultivate a mastery of chaos and order as dimensions of your own mind, the person eventually realizes it's like poetically an infinite soul could see infinitely in potentials of a chaotic archetype, and it could also see infinitely in order, right? Do you know? Chaos and order are like, it's pretty much how the known and the unknown and the visible and the invisible are like occurring simultaneously in a sort of infinite loop. It's as if like everybody in the future has to feel like a philosopher. Let me tell you why. Because the unknown is going to become more real, right? And if the species cannot cultivate a discretion between how our intent overlays a sort of subtler inner realm geometry upon what the outer realms has to mean. It's kind of like, in the simplest way, existence is just existing, end of idea. But in another way, it's as if, what is existence existing to, and what if it's not an idea? What if the methods and technologies we have so far are not enough for us to truly see what's going on here in this world? I have this, strange feeling that Zen monks will be teaching science, in the future. Can you imagine, engineers in the future who their whole principles of what they will engineer is based on, Buddhist values? People don't realize how genius Buddhism is. It's as if discovering the source of suffering, and once you notice it, you realize the observer is not the observed. Our freedom is how our attention moves with an emotion that it already knows where it's going. I think what can potentially happen, and I'll make a prediction, in the next 50 years, what's going to happen, let's say culturally, globally, on a global level, is that we're going to see, it's as if civilization has been so artificial and corrupt and dishonest that it's as if those who are living in civilization are tired of the simulated, that they're tired of the artificial. So right now, the species, when more intense things happen on the planet, will suddenly realize the value of human decency and honesty, right? That it's ultimately, it's how sophisticated, how advanced of a creature we're gonna be on this earth, Ludwig Wittgenstein has this quote. He says, "The real discovery is the one which enables me to stop doing philosophy when I want to. The one that gives philosophy peace, so that it is no longer tormented by questions which bring itself into question." And this is kind of like the concept of when a person experiences something chaotic, how much do they want to identify with a human archetype? That's the future generation's challenge. The future has to, it's like a game of how long will we be human? How long will we be human? Because what technology is showing is that an artificial life is more pleasurable than, let's say, a life in the original Earth. The activations of an unknown collective life, it's kind of like every human being realizing that as consciousness stands alone in a cosmos, what it finds itself to be gives it allegiance with the shape of its life, right? So in some sense, our identities are based on how what we see fits in the value system of our life. Who we are really is what memories of ourselves we're keeping alive in the moment. But really what the true nature of the moment is that there is emptiness before attention has any intent. It's the unknown. The unknown is where the advancement of all conception is. It's going there. That means the most incredible civilization, or the most advanced civilization, it must be said, but it's a civilization advancing so fast, let's say even faster, updating faster than the speed of light, that in some sense it becomes an inconceivable civilization. The greatness of humanity is being considered so great that its infinite to infinite potential is unimaginable. That means the infinite greatness of humanity is unimaginable, guys. I mean, imagine, like, the person had single-pointed, had activated the skill of single-pointed concentration, right? And so they were single-pointed, concentrating on the future. Imagine someone, like, maybe I should start saying this, but it's like imagine someone concentrating on the future, meditating on the future. And when you meditate on the future, you're accessing potential. You're wondering about how does the shape of your movement, or in how many ways can you as a being animate, move. Do you know what I'm saying? Like how the life force becomes our free will. Everybody trusts the unknown. Consciousness doesn't have that much of a big range. Like, it's like we have free will, but only in a conditional reality. There's so many things beyond our free will that are assisting the possibility of the current human life, that it's as if it's too strange. It's as if the universe is protecting the human species from itself, from anything, right? That means if the human species in its inner realms, it began to make a mistake, or in the outer realms, the forces of nature would harmonize. For how long will the idea of what we are be our reality? We are reaching that point in history where attention is choosing where to pilot, and it's like an era where we have one singular biological existence, but we have a multiple experience of minds. And what the mind is in actuality the spirit that animates the moment. So, some people, let's say, when they want to give a talk, they have a list of kind of obstacle course to go through, right? But some people, they when they give a talk, it's as if they just trust how there's a rhythm to why energy is moving at all. So what true mastery, like this guy who's about to kill those two soldiers, right? Like in the picture, this character, his mastery, his inner mastery, is based on how can I disarm them, or in some sense his outer mastery is just like how can I kill them. That means if this guy was truly a master of his craft, he would discover at the summit of every skill there is a sort of benevolent summit. There's like a peace. There's an ultimate peace. That means when you can truly use something, you are at peace with it, actually. We human beings are at peace with using our bodies, but we're not at peace when it comes to how are we psychologically piloting our attention through the space-time continuum. It's like, what's up with our minds being unknown? Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like the person's like, man, I thought I had all this known karma to deal with. In the middle of my known karma, there's also an unknown mind here. Imagine, a person is asked, like, let's say in a hypothetical setting, the person in a judgment scenario is asked by God, why did you do what you did in your lifetime? And the person asks God, why did you create me to do the things I did in the way I did in this lifetime? Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like truth is how the moment becomes a mirror of a reality that's already living in the freedom. that already has freedom. That means it's like, imagine somebody seeking for truth, but they realize it's about an awareness to a quality of how the moment is being. You know, stillness is a way to, I would say, is a way to pilot through the clouds of the mind, the clouds of imagination, right? Our inner realms, the simplest way I could say, it's like we have access to a film studio, right? Or we have access to this space where shape can move differently than how it moves in front of our eyes. Like right now, I'm looking at this coffee cup and I can imagine it hovering in the air. Where is the imagination of the cup hovering in the air? Do you see? It's like it's in an inner realm, you know? It's as if existence is experiencing. So a known existence is experiencing the unknown to realize it's an unknown experiencer, and its ultimate universal free will is to allow the moment to be. That means an advanced being instantaneously trusts it, that it's like the beginning and the end are the same moment. That's kind of what trust or faith, true faith, I would say, feels like. You know. For some reason, I wrote how unique is the concept of the unique, and I think I'm trying to point that when an idea is applied to itself, it can destroy the idea, right? You know, it's like the person, imagine somebody feels upset, and then they ask themselves, okay, why am I feeling upset? And then let's say they become conscious of the reasons why they feel upset, but then they're like, the person's like, okay, why am I in this moment even experiencing this kind of state of mind? The person is instantly released from duality. That means chaos and order are the wings of the soul. The soul is beyond its wings. It's moving its wings, you know. That means I'm saying, like, we're not like human beings with wings on our back, but it's kind of like our mind, the wings of our mind is how much the duality can have a contrast, right? Like there could be infinite types of good people and infinite types of bad people, right? There could be infinite inefficient decisions made on this planet and infinite efficient decisions made on this planet. It's all about how fascinated is the human being with being part of a human species stranded on a galactic island, you know, or better yet, as Marshall McLuhan and Buckminster Fuller have said, it's like we are crew members of Spaceship Earth. It's like we're already being part of the greatest teams on this planet that will arise in the future to advance civilization. What true innovation is to see something that hasn't been seen before. Literally, confidence in the unknown is kind of like another way we could say what faith is. Anyways, what else can I say? I don't know. Ultimately, when I feel like my whatever I am in this moment is like this unknown viewer, and it has access to a physical layout of reality, but when I consider reality is imagined, I access a way my mind is happening, where it's like I am watching myself be my mind in the same way I watch myself be my body. And the inner realms, we can never be our inner realms. That means this is hilarious. Human beings think that to be a human being is an idea, but a human being can never be an idea. An idea is a mask. It's a persona. We are not stories in the dimension of language. We are, it's like It's kind of like poetically, imagine we wanted to build an enlightened society. It would be another way of saying every human being has to have a capability to acknowledge the spectrum of all the ways the dimension can exist, the world can exist. We need scholars of the known world, and we need scholars of unknown worlds, you know. Our civilization is pretty much going to go through a phase where we're going to appreciate how much of a unique, 4.5 billion year old evolutionary opportunity being a human being is, right? And we wonder about, okay, what is the grand symphony of humanity? And it's really, a faith in the future's greatness being based on how great we live now. Imagine this is happening in one's genetics, like how the person feels is like, sculpting who their children are going to be, It's kind of bizarre, the nature of reality. It's like, why is the creature surviving on Earth to pass like a torch a geometrical pattern? Biological life is like part of a geometrical dimension started to behave in disharmony. That means it's like the soul is a way where the body, through the projection of a mind, was disconnected from reality. So if I choose to be an ideological entity, there has to be a disconnect from nature. It's as if like man is superior to nature, but what is man? The idea of life. We pretty much reach an era of advanced communication, and everybody begins to feel like they are an explorer of an unknown world, rather than believers of known stories that end up updating anyways. There's going to be, let's say, written in history books, the greatest conversations, just like there were great battles, let's say, okay? Great battles fought by our ancestors. It's like there's going to be great conversations for the advanced humanity. Pretty much, we open our eyes by realizing how everybody's eyes are being opened. And so the conclusion comes with how far we see. Pretty much what leadership is how out of a group of people, which one of them sees the furthest, right? Like, we judge a person's value based on the past, but there's a hidden value to those who have established a relationship with how their mind presents the future. It's as if like if a person wants to drink a cup of coffee, in their mind they're already drinking it, and they just hold the cup, they pick up the cup. So the mind is living faster than our body. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. And what true skill is in any, let's say, simulation of reality, is an ability through simple understanding to see the potential of complexity. It's like to see that humanity is capable of greater sight. Become fascinated with how consciousness is happening, and you will become automatically a sage of the world. Poetically, the most advanced civilization was the purest intent of the original Earth. The cosmos is like inside an auditorium waiting to see what is the potential of creatures that have noticed the cosmos on giant celestial spheres. it's honestly communication. Like this warrior, before fighting those two, can communicate, you know. Reality is a multi-sided event. To free the present from how the past thought the future would be. It's like we are waiting for the future, you know. It's as if without knowing it, the greatness of humanity is the greatest outcome of all those who make up humanity. It is time for the human species to seek a collective victory. And the greatest victory is the victory of consciousness over the unconscious. So to comprehend the nature of reality leads to the truth of one's knowledge. Thanks for listening, guys. Much blessings. Namaste. Rise, mankind. Rise.